Miroslav Marinovich wrote an important article entitled "What Should Be Kyiv Church of the Future?" It's a result of the work of Institute of Frontier and Ukraine. And he wrote that Maidans were praying with Christian, Judaic, and Muslim prayers and were interconfessional, ecumenic, and open. And Russia hit us, first of all, on Maidans, and hit us on Maidan. And Russia hits this diversity, ecumenic diversity in Ukraine, trying to eliminate it like a black hole. With this, we will start our discussion. Let me begin with a question to you, Your Excellency. So we have, do we have a light ahead of us? A light consists of many elements, and among those elements, there is a light which concerns not only our victory on the front line, at the military front, but many other spheres where Ukrainian light should eliminate the other's darkness. And I would like to ask you questions about darkness which we observe sometimes in the Catholic world. Unfortunately, such things happen. We face Ukrainian phobia among our Catholic neighbors in Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary. The recent campaign in Hungary was marked by a wave of phobia against Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Not an easy, rather provocative question. But I think we're feeling this, during darkness, you always hear the bright light of the God's Word. And that's why we hear the voice of Pope Leo XIV. Let me quote him, which triggered, controversial reactions in Washington. He said, our God is the knight of peace that doesn't reject peace, and you should, those who do not listen to prayers will not hear the light. In my opinion, these words really reflect the view of the Catholic Church when national or public egoisms are being reborn. And xenophobia and Ukrainian phobia are really manifestations of such an egotism. In Kyiv, this is presented as the demasking of Russian militarism. The warmongers who call this a sacred war and who pray on camera, to be specific, I'd like to talk about Catholic spirit of solidarity, which counters national egoisms. Let me give you 3 examples. Today we have a delegation of Prashev, delegation from Slovak Republic. He is the Yuri Popovich. He's a professor with his spouse. And Catholic intellectuals and volunteers traveled many times from Prashev to Kharkiv, and it's a vivid example of how the spirit of Catholic solidarity keeps the darkness at bay. Another example I'd like to mention is the Archbishop of Kharkiv, Krakow, who, in the heat of the winter, after the first SMS, staged a powerful action, and within 2 weeks collected 2 million euro. And we handed over powerful generators for Trieste, for Bologna. He personally gave a generator for which he paid out of his pocket, and it is now used by the Children's Rehabilitation Center in Trieste. So, regardless of the winds, of the political winds, Catholic solidarity treats national egotisms. The same thing I can say is about Cardinal Petrol from Budapest, who was one of the first friends of Ukraine, who helped us to take care of our refugees who ended up in Ogoshen. So Catholic solidarity treats national egotisms. And the voice of the Church today is the light in the dark realms of modern world. Thank you. Your Excellency, thank you. I'd like to ask the next question, getting back to Miroslav Vernovich's article, who talks about Kyiv Church of the future. How to mobilize the force, the power of Kyiv Church. The question to Archbishop to Yevstratiy. Your Excellency, in your opinion, what can be done? Thank you for receiving me at this very important Ukrainian forum. And during the discussions, I was thinking that about a month before the outbreak of the war, we had a similar panel, I think in Hilton, it was held, had a discussion about threats, and that's when we talked about so-called Russian world and the Russian ideology that fosters aggression and deconstruction of the most fundamental foundations of the modern world order and the civilization as we know it, and which tries to bring the world back to concepts and notions of the darkest theories stemming from medieval Europe, as well as Asiatic autocracies such as the Golden Orda and the Genghis Khan Empire. Back then, we were trying to analyze the prior Russian aggression, but we were also analyzing the Russian world. Therefore, it's impossible to overcome the aggression that has not only political, personal, economic, or any other easy to understand for rational world motivation by mere answers that the world will try to search for. The thing is, motivation of this aggression is based on pseudo-religious, pseudo-psychological, and worldview principles. Therefore, one of the worldview things, as the core of the mindset and the mentality that sits behind the idea of the Russian world, is the concept that it's their model of the state, relations between religion and the state, motivation, etc., is the only truth and the only civilizational model that supposedly preserves genuine Christianity. And that supposedly only in this way, in this manifestation, the true Christian faith can be protected. And that's what they are supposedly doing. And through this theory, they're searching for allies in various conservative environments, such as the Soviet Union, for example, in the past, using the protection of the rights of the workers and peasants, also were looking for allies throughout the world. And now they're searching for allies in North Korea, Iran, etc. And so the response to this model of darkness perpetrating to be actually the model of light, and the devil originally was actually carrying light, in order to seduce humans. So the response to this, and should be, the Ukrainian religious reality and the model of Ukrainian Kyiv Church, which shows that you can simultaneously have unity and be diverse. You can simultaneously honor traditions, be deep-rooted in traditions, but also be completely transparent and open to the society. That you can simultaneously support democracy, democratic processes, the society that fosters democracy, while adhering to dogmatic foundations of faith that church is based on as a hierarchical structure that has also the heavens dimension. And this year, we will be celebrating fairly soon, this summer actually, the 30th anniversary of the Council of Religious Organizations. And this happens to be one of the tangible fruits that characterizes religious Ukraine, Christian Ukraine, as well as other religious confessions, as compared to, for example, Russia, which we're fighting right now, because our unity, diversity, openness to the modern world, but also deep-rootedness in the tradition gives us morally, religiously, spiritually respond to this dark model of the Russian world that they're trying to impose on us, and that they're using in order to shield the true nature of the aggression. Thank you. Thank you very much. So unity and diversity happens to be a European motto, and this is a powerful signal that Kyiv is sending out to the rest of the world, and I'm sure that our forum is being closely watched in the Kremlin. But just as importantly, Washington is monitoring us, and Donald Trump today is actually responded to our forum and a statement made by Prince Harry. And amongst many voices, one unprecedented event occurred. There is a very highly authoritative initiative called Nobel Women's Initiative. 8 Nobel Prize winners who, using Kyiv Security Forum, in connection to this forum, made a special address to the Ukrainian people. And this initiative was supported by Kyiv and Kyiv residents, and we would like to thank her. I have a question to Alexandra Matvichuk. First of all, thanks for coming to Ukraine. Glad to see you. Secondly, could you please present this unprecedented address of Nobel Prize winners on the occasion of Kyiv Security Forum? Thank you very much for the honor to participate in this panel, and it is my joy and honor to present this address that made by my friends, colleagues on the occasion of Kyiv Security Forum. It begins with, very hearty welcome made by personally of Nobel Prize winners, because they're expressing the words of support, solidarity, and this is an address that calls a spade from the outset. And because those who talk about the war in Ukraine, they use the genuine words. And Nobel Prize winners stand with Ukraine, and they support Ukraine. The address features three main key messages. First is to do with human dimension, which was partially ignored and led to negative consequences. 1 year of presidency of Donald Trump has led to negative consequences. Based on UN figures, the number of civilians in Ukraine is up by 35% compared to last year. This is the result of losing the focus of human as a priority. Second message is that there can no be peace without justice. These are not contradictory words. Justice is the guarantor of lasting peace. Therefore, we need to take steps in order to bring to responsibility all the perpetrators, those who committed war crimes, on the way to peace. And the last message that the Nobel Prize winners, women, sent to Ukrainian people concerns with Ukrainian women. We have saw great feats and deeds of Ukrainian women. They have joined the armed forces, they document war crimes, they conduct initiatives, make political decisions, because courage has no gender behind it, really. Therefore, the idea is to involve Ukrainian women in all decision-making processes, reforms, search for peace, and negotiations.
And paid dues to the role that Ukrainian women play in resisting to Russia's aggression. Thank you, Alexandra. And we also have, technically, we have this connection, I hope. We have Maria Ressa. Do we have an online connection here? Maria.
To see you. Thank you for joining the Kyiv Security Forum. That's a great honor and privilege for us to host you here. We have a panel with a very strong lineup of speakers, as distinguished personalities here in Ukraine. So we are grateful to you, to your support of Ukraine, and to the remarkable statement which we received from the Nobel Women's Initiative. Maria, we meet in dark times, and great powers again try to, share their spheres of influence. Do you see the light ahead? You're welcome.
Well, first, thank you. Thank you so much I had hoped to be there with you today, but I'm in Madrid on this AI scientific panel. I just want to say what you are doing impacts all of us, and to see Alexandra, to see you again, it's great to see you again. Every time I'm on stage with her, she leaves me in tears. This time, hopefully not. I try very hard to prepare, but it never works, because what she carries, what the work she's done, she documented atrocities, the names of the victims, the grief she's transformed into purpose. I think that's what we heard earlier. This is almost unbearable to witness. So when I see her, I see Ukraine, and I remember that the battles we've fought in the Philippines, my battles and your battles, are actually one battle. So how do I see the light? Absolutely. I mean, look, the president, my president, who tried to jail me for almost a century, just yesterday, he was arrested last year, and he's now in prison in The Hague. He will now face charges of crimes against humanity. So how do we see the light? Well, first, by seeing clearly. The world has gotten darker since I wrote How to Stand Up to a Dictator, which has just been translated to Ukrainian. 2024 was a tipping point year for democracy. 2025 showed us what happens when citizens fail to hold the line, when Western democracies begin to fall. That's what we're living through now. We face, and we saw this, an unholy alliance. The traditional authoritarians, the kleptocrats, with the tech oligarchs, the tech bros who have built the infrastructure of our information ecosystem. Putin invades Ukraine. Netanyahu prosecutes a war that has killed over 70,000 Palestinians and more journalists than every other conflict in history combined, going back to the US Civil War. Musk, Zuckerberg, they provide the propaganda channels, the algorithmic amplification, the destruction of the shared reality that makes these wars possible. Ukraine sounded the alarm very early, along with the Philippines. But those traditional dictators and these tech oligarchs, they're not the same, but they're symbiotic because they feed each other. I've said this for nearly a decade. Our public information ecosystem now, where the battle you are fighting on the ground, we are fighting online, because without facts, we can't have truth. Without truth, we can't have trust. Without these three, we don't have a shared reality. We can't have journalism. Citizens can't move. Democracy dies. So it's also about to get worse with chatbots, because it's moving from the attention economy to intimacy. Right? So it's going to get worse. And this sentence I've said, I told the United Nations this in September, information integrity is the mother of all battles. The light. Let me go back to the light, because this is where I find it. I find it in you. In a nation told that it would fall in 3 days, you're still standing after more than 4 years. I find it in engineers who took commercial drones that were designed for photography and agriculture and turned them into instruments of asymmetric warfare, in the teenagers that are building weapons in basements, in the software developers. We used to have a product manager from Ukraine and developers from Ukraine, but now they're tracking troop movements, in the hackers defending your infrastructure, in the volunteers using open source intelligence to document war crimes in real time. I find light in journalists like Natalia Gumenyuk, Angelina Karyakina, who are reinventing journalism under fire, creating a public broadcaster that's both patriotic and independent. It's proof, you are proof, that those are not contradictions. That's a light for journalists. And this week, I told you in Madrid, this is where I am, the first in-person meeting of the UN Independent International Scientific Panel on AI. We're in our third and last day. I co-chair it alongside with Joshua Bengio. 40 scientists from 37 countries, independent of any government or any company. This is the first time the world is building a global scientific body to confront these new dictators, the tech bros who've operated with impunity for 20 years. We're late, but we're beginning, and we're doing that because of what people like you have taught us. Ukraine taught the world a lesson we desperately needed to learn, that technology is not inherently authoritarian. Yes, the platforms have failed us. Yes, algorithms have been weaponized against democracy, but technology is also what allows a smaller nation to resist a larger one. Technology is a battlefield, And you've shown us we must fight for it as fiercely as we fight for the physical terrain. In our world, in AI, you are the counterexample. You're proof that the authoritarian narrative is false, that courage is possible, that resistance is not futile, that democracy is worth fighting for. You've already written the manual on how to stand up to a dictator, and you write it every day in every act of resistance and in your refusal to surrender. I've written this, that you've become the conscience of the world. So you don't have to look far to see the light. It required and requires great sacrifice from you, but it is there. It's in your room, in my friend Alexandra, in every Ukrainian who's chosen truth over fear, who refused to surrender, and who galvanize us. Your battle is our battle. We're with you. Thank you.
Bravo, 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 Maria. I would like, on behalf of everyone who is present here, I would like to thank you very much for these powerful words, for this powerful message that you sent to Ukraine. And here I would like to underline that Maria Ressa is a famous Nobel Peace Prize laureate of 2021. She is one of the world's greatest defenders of freedom. She fights against abuse of power, and she is a champion of the world efforts in that field, in that sphere. I thank you, Maria. І дозвольте, я відразу ж перейду до іншої.
And please allow me to make a transition to another subject of darkness. Your Eminence, the question is to you, and perhaps it is not complex, or it may be quite complex. So this is the darkness that you encountered very unexpectedly. So President Trump is attacking the Pope, and J.D. Vance is teaching the Pope theology. So what is the attitude of the Holy See to that? How can you fight that sort of situation? Well, I'm obviously representing the Pope here, but I also wanted to mention that this sort of war, this sort of aggression of Russia against Ukraine, it prompts us all to unite. And I want to thank Metropolitan Yevstratiy for what he said. So we better and better realize that everybody has their own identity. Every church has its faith, but it does not mean that in this diversity we could not unite. And in that sense, I even believe that when we hear that Pope Leo is responding, when he's talking about the Prince of Peace, when he's talking about God, it is not just the words on behalf of the Catholic Church. I believe this war makes us stick together, so to speak, while retaining our identity. Recently, we marked the holy day of Easter, and the resurrected God tells us peace to you all, and if those are Jews, shalom, and to Muslims it is salam. It all means peace, and peace, which the Lord is talking about, it transcends the human peace that we dream of. So it is our objective to build peace that is eternal and in the future, and in that sense we have, and let me emphasize, I have this privilege of serving here at the time of Russia's aggression in Ukraine, and all of us here, we are privileged because the war makes us think how we can unite our efforts. And that is also a challenge for Pope Leo and for the Catholic Church. How do we combine our efforts with other churches and with other religions? Because all together, the war that is entrenched in the world outlook of the world, we can be able to stop this war, because it is not only Russia's war, it is the war of the devil, of Satan, who wants to divide us. And if we are divided, we will not achieve anything. So In that sense, it is not just the churches, not just the religions, but all humanity needs to be together. And everybody who wants to protect life and justice and truth. But being together does not mean we only remain in the realm of theory. So I also wanted to emphasize this other aspect. At this forum today, we have people meeting here who either have direct experience of war or they become engaged in this experience, and then it has the consequences, the results of solidarity, as Sviatoslav has mentioned, and head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. And it is also our need to build solidarity all over the world. But there is also another dimension. I represent the Holy See, and the Holy See is also a church and a subject of international law. And at our in the international law, international humanitarian law, we have a major challenge, and it needs to be responded to by people who have practical experience of war, because theories are not sufficient. Let me give you an example. Representatives of the Pope meet with representatives of Russia, and they are talking about civilians who have been convicted in occupied territories, or even about children. And international humanitarian law tells us that occupationist forces must respect the rights of those people. But Russia's answer is that it is our people, it is our territory, it is our nation, it is our laws. So in that sense, even those words, sometimes it remains theoretical, and we have this term neutrality. And sometimes it refers to churches or international organizations, but we can also see that at the time of war, when you deal with specific issues, you do not have neutrality any longer, because you either stop and say, basically, that all you said is true because I accept your position, even politically, and what is the responsibility? And I wanted to thank all of you since you remain in touch, and Sviatoslav and Metropolitans and Alexandra here, when we all together are thinking about how we can respond to these specific and practical challenges, because they transcend the experience we had before.
Thank you very much for your profound thoughts. My next question is to Bishop Bandura, who represents Evangelical Baptist Christians. This union is highly reputed in the U.S. and across the world. It is highly respected in Ukraine as well. And my question is about your authority, how to work with the American conservative communities. I'm happy to represent here our union and the council and Protestant churches. We realize that this is our responsibility, and this is incumbent upon us to work with our brothers and sisters in the U.S. This work is very complicated, and unfortunately, the conservative movement is being abused by the ultra-right, which harms this movement very much. But currently, all our work and our advocacy efforts translate themselves into 75 to 80% of support by Americans that they have for Ukraine, including both Republicans and Democrats. We believe that this is quite an achievement, and we are happy that we can communicate to the believers in the U.S. because evangelical communities and unions in the U.S. is a very powerful force which makes an influence on political decision-making in election processes and otherwise. In spite of all the complexities of the current political processes, the U.S. remains our key strategic partner, and we want this to remain that way. Obviously, we see our tasks in certain key areas. Primarily, we realize that the American evangelists and conservatives very often see the world through the prism of their domestic policy. Our task, though, is to bring the issue of Ukraine out of the political context into the realm of moral and spiritual responsibility. This is not about national egoism and selfishness. This is about our shared responsibility. Ukraine basically is a test for people's loyalty to their religious principles, the principles of freedom and resistance to evil. And this is a shared value for all of us. Obviously, there is one more challenge. I have already said that conservative communities are very often falling victim to propaganda. The Russian propaganda is weaponizing seemingly conservative values when Satan comes to the world under the guise of the angel of light. Russia is killing our women and our children and seeks to destroy Ukraine through genocide. At the same time, wants to be perceived by the world as a custodian of family and other conservative values. Strange as it may seem, a lot of people buy that. And on the other hand, there's a corrupt liberal West which makes an impact here. And here, the voice of evangelical Christians is absolutely key. We dispel that propaganda and we remind people about the true biblical values. And we see that we've made quite a headway here, and we believe that there's a good prospect for our relationship. Political contexts can change, but the groundwork, which is made up by people, will show us light ahead. We would like to thank you all for this very important work. Sometimes we don't realize how hard and how subtle and sophisticated that work is. So please accept our thanks to everything you do by way of talking to our U.S. brothers and sisters. And now I would like to offer to your attention the video address by Tawakkul Kalman, National Peace Prize laureate and the founder of and chair of Women Journalists Without Chains. Вітаю всіх присутніх на Київському безпековому форумі, шановні учасники.
Peace be upon you all. We meet today at a moment when wars and confrontation are expanding from within countries to across regions and continents. It is a profoundly dangerous time. Wars are escalating, authoritarian regimes are rising and tightening their grip, and international institutions are weakening under humanitarian and economic crisis. At the same time, the global order is fracturing and human solidarity is fading. In such a moment, our responsibility is not only to describe the crisis, but to confront it with clarity and courage. Russia's war against Ukraine marked as dangerous turning point. It revived the logic of invasion and normalized the violation of state sovereignty. When this principle is broken in one place, it is weakened everywhere. Today, we see the consequences: rising tension, expanding conflicts, and the growing sense that the rules that once governed international relations are no longer respected. At the same time, nuclear security has returned as a major global concern. As we mark today the 40th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster, the threat is no longer distant but immediate. Russian attacks on Ukraine's nuclear infrastructure and the occupation of the Zaporizhzhia plant have brought this danger back to the global agenda. This risk extends beyond Ukraine. Today, necessity calls for Europe to lead the world, guided by historical responsibility to restore global order, to restore global balance, not through rhetoric, but through action. Europe is not being asked to be praised, it's being called to act. This requires confronting structural injustice, ending double standards, and leading real reform of global institutions. Starting with the United Nations Security Council and the veto power itself, which undermines equality and paralyzes action. Europe must also strengthen the International Criminal Court, despite all the sanctions against it by United States. Protect International Criminal Court from political pressure and ensure accountability for all without any exception. Today, there is a clear vacuum in global leadership. If democratic Europe doesn't act, others will fill that space. Actors, states who do not believe in justice or law, and the cost that failure will be borne by the entire world. But leadership is not measured by words. It's proven through actions. Europe must act with urgency in addressing today's conflicts. In Ukraine, it must provide full support for Ukrainian people and for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Reject any unjust settlement and ensure justice and accountability. In Palestine, it must move beyond statements to end the occupation, the Israeli occupation, to ensure accountability and to support an Palestinian independent state. In Yemen and Sudan, it must support people there, protect civilians there, end war there, and end the regional interference. Dear friends, this forum asks, darkness or dawn? Is there light ahead? I say yes, there is light ahead. We are the ones who create the light. We create it through our will, our belief in freedom and dignity, and our refusal to remain silent. And we create it when we stand for justice everywhere, because the future must belong not to empires, but to peoples, to law, and to human rights. Thank you so much.
Тавакуль Карман сказала важливу річ. Злочин вчинений.
Tavakul Karmar said a very important thing. A crime committed someplace has repercussions across the world. But the light, likewise, can be spread. I would like to give the floor to Mufti Murat Suleimanov. This is a great honor for us to welcome you here, Mufti. I'd like to ask you, this light from Ukraine, can it light up a similar light in the Middle East? I was very happy to listen to Ms. Tayekul, because I studied in Yemen, and I saw the Arab Spring in Yemen, and the first war I saw with my own eyes was in Yemen. So I understand her pain, I feel her pain, and I understand the mentality that stands behind it. Do we see in the light at the end of the tunnel? In the Islamic traditions, we would put it differently. There's in Quran, Allah said that after every difficulty there comes an alleviation. And we see this playing out in the world, because this is the law of Allah, and this light gives us motivation to do something and never to stop in our actions, because it is due to our actions that we can achieve success. And what is going on in the Middle East obviously influences us all, the whole world, and it makes an impact on our country as well. And when we speak about the religious emphasis on this, I'm very wary that the war in Ukraine can spread and spill over into the religious realm, and it can go on like in Pakistan, where it is being dragged out for more than 80 years, because the world didn't try to stop this, and the war reached the level of religious contradictions.
And the second threat is that they're trying to impose on us that we have to stop war by agreement, reject our territory, relinquish our territories, Donbass, Crimea. But this doesn't suit us. But as Alexandra spoke, she said very important thing. Speaking about peace, we cannot separate justice. We want the peace to be just, not just to stop it temporarily and have no results. Thank you for your words. We are getting closer to finish of our discussion. I'd like you to listen to Judy Williams, who is the founding coordinator of the Women Initiative, and summing up the idea of our discussion. She will speak. Judy Williams, the floor is hers.
I wish I could be with you. I'm Jody Williams, the founding chair of the Nobel Women's Initiative. My first visit to Ukraine was amazing. It seems like it was forever ago. And it's appalling that you all are still suffering the aggression of Russia. Of course, we hope for peace for everybody. When I think about peace these days, it's kind of hard to imagine, given the breakdown of much of the international system, given the emphasis on AI and, autonomous weapons, and not thinking about what to me is real security, and it's human security. The point of a government, in my view, is taking care of the people, not fighting other countries, not killing other people. And certainly in Mr. Putin's attacks on Ukraine, he targets civilians. He targets hospitals. He targets schools. He targets the things that people need to live. And how do we rebuild? Is a question that I'm asked a lot, and a question I wonder, how do we begin to rebuild an international system that actually pays attention to human security and not just national security, which is, of course, the protection of the state. Of course, we need governance, but is protecting the state more important than protecting human beings? I think they probably go hand in hand. And when I think of Ukraine, and when I think of Mr. Trump, 79, his attack on Iran, I wonder the same. Not that Iran is a great democracy, but then again, neither is Russia. But one still has to focus on how do we protect human beings? How do we protect humanity? How do we foster the understanding and belief that the most important thing is respect for each other? It's not how many can we kill so we get rid of our enemies. It's how do we build societies where we respect each other. Doesn't mean you have to like them, Doesn't mean you have to invite them to your house for dinner. I say that all the time. But you can respect the other person's right to live. You can respect the other person's right to be who they want to be in the world. And that can't happen without peace, obviously. It's hard to imagine, as I just said, how we start to rebuild meaningful peace. Not long, I'll be going to a conference at the Vatican about artificial intelligence and nuclear weapons. Imagine the pairing of artificial intelligence with nuclear bombs. How do you fit that in a framework of human security? It ain't secure, I wish that, I wish the world could unite somehow in terms of humanity and struggle together to stop these wars. The war in Ukraine, how many years now? 4 or 5 that Ukrainians have been enduring with amazing strength the aggression of Russia. And now, 2 times now Mr. Trump has threatened to, annihilate Persian culture, the Iranian culture from the face of the earth. And this is a guy who used to call himself the peace president, of course. And he used to say that he, could solve the Ukrainian problem in 1 day. Well, he hasn't done a very good job. It's up to us, I think. It's up to people to work together and believe in each other and believe that they together can change the world. And we have an example of change. Orban in Hungary. 16 years of that autocrat, and now he's gone. It can be done. It's arduous, but so is living in war. I need not tell you that. I wish that we could start a grassroots global peace movement that actually worked. I'm going to put my head to it and see how I and the Nobel Women's Initiative and other peaceniks, to use an old word, can come together to try to support and forward that kind of thinking about peace as human security. Peace about caring about other people on the planet, even if we don't know them. I guess that'll be my goal. I wish I were there with you. Unfortunately, my own mother just died a couple months ago, and I've been not so happy since. And it was too much for me to try to travel. I give you all big heart hugs, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
What a beautiful palette of thoughts and feelings concerning such complicated but at the same time simple problems, but extremely important. I would like you to send great thanks to Judy for these words. And finishing our panel, I would like to give the floor to Rabbi Yakov Sinyakov, who is a Ukrainian rabbi at the front line, and the question sounds like a biblical one. Yaakov, is there any light at the end of the tunnel? I wish you health and shalom aleichem. I would like to make a joke that everything began with Jews and everything finishes with Jew. Sitting in such a wonderful place, I have some philosophical thoughts, because 2 weeks ago I was in Dobropil and Kvarizha at the front line in the swamps, in the forest. It's a great difference what's going on there and here. But I must say that the biggest chaos in the socium is called war. In order to overcome this biggest chaos, we have to find the biggest order. Where is the biggest order? In the army. Commander, subordinates. Therefore, Ukrainian armed forces are the most important now. This is the foundation of peace. If you want peace, prepare for war. And they say, don't kill. There is a testament. This is a rule. The God would like nobody would kill anyone, but there are people who come first to kill you, and we have to defend. I'm calling Ukrainian armed forces hands of God in Ukraine, because they are fulfilling the God's law not to kill. According to the Torah, you should not move the margin. If somebody moves the margin, he's a thief, especially those who take others' lives. When I entered this beautiful hotel, I noticed books. I like books, and I went to look at these books, and even have bought one. And I thought, how many books have been written about peace? How many declarations, unions were always spoke about peace? But unfortunately, the world has been existing with the wars. Where is the rule? The rules on which the world is based. These are God's law, God's rules. And when every person accepts these rules, there will be changes. Military chaplains, it's a great example. When the chaplains go through the professional development courses, in the hall, there are Orthodox priests, Greek Catholics, Roman Catholics, Protestants, even one Jew, and we have no problems. We believe into one God. This is Ukraine. I'm Jew, but I'm Ukrainian. And every person has God's soul. This is the most important. We have to find something which unites us. We have to base on something which unites us, not divides us. The Hasids say that if we measure evil and good, it may happen that evil and good will be at the same level, 50-50. And then the little thing which each of one has to do, to raise good above evil. So we have to start from ourselves. When? Tomorrow. Because we are here and now. There is no future. Yesterday has ended. Now, today is a God's sent present. That's why everyone should do something good today. I'm calling upon you. I know that many of you, and we met a number of times together, with the help of our Lord, will continue working on this. Thank you very much. Glory to heroes. The moderator has to make certain conclusion, but I would like to give this right to Sviatoslav Shevchuk, His Excellency, to give the final concluding word. I have three thoughts. The first thought is a message to the world. No to war. This is a universal message. This is a message which we hear from Pope Leo, but this is the voice of the whole mankind which is suffering from war. The second, remembering that this year All-Ukrainian Union of Churches would celebrate 30th anniversary of its existence, we have a slogan: we are all different, but we are all equal. Whether it's a small community or it's a big church, we are all equal to God and to Ukrainian law. And we learned how to work together for the sake of good of Ukrainian people. And so this unity is in difference, and this is our message from Ukraine to the world. I would like to thank especially His Eminence Archbishop Visvaldas Kulbokas for intermediary activities of the Holy See. Recently, Ukrainian Post printed a post-them and for marking the celebration of Ukrainian children from Russian captivity, thanks to Vatican. And in May, Cardinal Matteo Zuppi is going to visit Ukraine, who tried to visit Ukrainian prisoners of war in Russia. They did not allow him because, as Nuncio mentioned, Russia ignores international law and believes that their so-called national legislation is above international law, including humanitarian one. Would like to show that Ukraine is different. And everybody spoke about the light of hope at the end of that dark tunnel. We heard that from the Nobel Peace Prize laureates, powerful women from Ukraine in the world. We've heard that as witness from Quran, from Mufti, that after darkness always the light comes.
The Rabbi also mentioned that Ukrainian armed forces are the hands of God in Ukraine. Well, there's nothing else to add except amen. I'd like to thank the wonderful participants of this panel and you, our friends. Thank you for following our panel. Thank you very much.